Hello and welcome to the first lecture of this lecture series titled Introduction to Metaphysics. In this first lecture, we will deal with certain preliminary but fundamental questions about metaphysics, such as what is metaphysics, how it evolved, and about its relevance. About 100 years after Aristotle's death, that is around 322 BC, an editor of Aristotle titled 14 works of Aristotle as Ta Meta Ta Physica, which in Greek apparently meant the after the physicals or the ones after the physicals. This editor was probably Andronicus of Rhodes. The title was coined to probably warn students that they should study metaphysics only after the physical studies. According to the editor, the manner of dealing with extra physical objects by Aristotle was not an accident but was a conscious decision of Aristotle to deal with physical objects first and other higher objects later. So, whatever came after physical objects became an entire branch of philosophy. Thus, Aristotle's investigation into the higher objects was regarded as the first philosophy or sophia, that is, wisdom. So, what is metaphysics? It is a branch of philosophy that deals with the nature of existence, truth, and knowledge. It is a division of philosophy that is concerned with the fundamental nature of reality and being, and that includes ontology, cosmology, and often epistemology. Metaphysics perhaps emanates out of the human desire to understand the universe and its constituent. This endeavor takes the shape of physics, which views universe almost empirically, and takes the shape of metaphysics when the inquiry is speculative and conceptual. This proposition is a broad generalization which, for most scholars, would be extremely reductionist, but let us start off with this assumption. The question of what constitutes the universe and reality has occupied the minds of scholars since ancient times. The question is the subject matter of metaphysics. Its aim, from a philosophical point of view, is to advance our understanding of reality by analyzing problems and developing explanations. You might ask me, any subject or area of study looks at reality. For instance, the study of design of a building or the case laws under a particular section of the statute are inquiries into reality, but these are specific inquiries. Metaphysics, on the other hand, is a generality and fundamentality. Generality follows from the attempt to answer fundamental questions about reality. Metaphysics is not independent of science, unlike how it was classified by Aristotle. Now, coming back to what happened after Aristotle, in the medieval times, metaphysics was regarded as the study of the most basic features of reality or of the most basic concepts used in an account of reality. Aristotle called it the science of ultimate causes and principles, while medieval philosophers such as Christian Wolff classified it into general metaphysics, that is, Metaphysica generalis, and special or particular metaphysics, that is, Metaphysica specialis. General metaphysics was the investigation into being and existence, that is ontology, and special metaphysics concerned with issues about particular kinds of aspects of being, including rational theology, that is about God, rational psychology about the soul, and rational cosmology about the world. The latter part of the medieval period saw certain important developments in metaphysics. Here, things originally thought to be a part of physics came to be added in the subject of metaphysics. Examples are the mind body relation, freedom of will, and personal identity across time. Metaphysics during this period became a catch-all phrase for problems which did not strictly fall in other branches of philosophy or sciences. Wolff classified metaphysics, but this classification was an attempt to systematize the subject. It was criticized as verbal ploy. In the modern times, rationalists such as Descartes, Spinoza, Leibniz, and Hegel, and in fact, Plato was also a rationalist. These people wrote extensively on metaphysics. They understood metaphysics as the inquiry conducted by pure reason into the nature of reality, which is beyond perception, but they differed on what the underlying reality was about. Immanuel Kant called the attempt to use pure reason to account for transcendent reality as speculative metaphysics. Metaphysics was considered as the propensity of human mind toward total explanation, and its subject matter were God, freedom of will, and immortality. These were considered grounds for right way to act, that is, metaphysics of morals. Kant argued that speculative metaphysics could not yield knowledge. Note that he called the attempt to use pure reason to account for transcendent reality as speculative metaphysics. Kant's philosophy deals with conditions for possibility of experience and presuppositions of science. Later, Carnap and logical positivists called metaphysics as nonsensical, and that it was a field of alleged knowledge of the essence of things. Strawson presented a logical positivist point of view of metaphysics and classified the subject into reversionary and descriptive metaphysics. Reversionary metaphysics dealt with speculative aspects, while descriptive metaphysics was concerned with the conceptual scheme according to which we think and talk. Heidegger and Derrida sought to exclude metaphysics altogether from their thought, but did not satisfy themselves that they succeeded. Marxists considered metaphysics as a part of stationary and isolated way of thinking, as opposed to the Hegelian dialectics. Many philosophers have doubted if metaphysics is in fact possible. According to them, questions of metaphysics are either meaningless or are impossible to answer. The question is, if we want to understand reality, why is physics insufficient? W.V.O. Quine, in fact, stated, it is within science itself and not in some prior philosophy that reality is to be identified and described. Metaphysicians argue that metaphysics looks at fundamental and general ideas which science, where it is regarded as not supported. Physics concerns physical objects, but metaphysics relate to the things that exist and non-physical things such as mind, soul, etc. They argue if there is a compelling reason to assume only that physical things exist, concepts are mental constructs which pure sciences may be unable to explain. Generality in metaphysics flows from its attempts to answer fundamental questions about reality. Specific questions could be dealt in other sciences. Metaphysicians have rejected W.V.O. Quine's idea. At the same time, the idea in the opposite end of the spectrum that metaphysics should ignore sciences is also liable to be rejected because it presents an extreme, untenable view. Metaphysics should take into account development in sciences. Interaction between natural sciences and metaphysics is a key aspect for the relevance of metaphysics, and lack of imbibing scientific temper will make it a religious discourse based on faith. So, what is studied under metaphysics? Under metaphysics, the subjects of beings, categories, substances, mind body relation, God and existence, and soul were traditionally studied. In addition to these topics, in the modern times, the topics of modality, space and time, persistence and constitution, causation, mental and physical, and social metaphysics are commonly studied. So, is the study of metaphysics relevant? We will reserve this subject for the last lecture in the lecture series. For the moment, let us assume that it is possible. Historically, metaphysics has dealt with fundamental ideas about reality, and therefore there is nothing akin to a leap of faith in that assumption. To conclude and recap, metaphysics is the study of reality, which is also studied by physics and cosmology. Metaphysics addresses questions that cannot be answered by empirical scientific investigation alone. Questions such as, do we have free will? What is the nature of human persons? Are we purely physical beings, or do we have a non-physical part or aspect? How is time different from space? Is everything a particular, or are there universals? Are questions that are answered in metaphysics. That's all in lecture 1. See you in the next lecture. Bye bye and stay safe.